Well, hello and welcome to the May 25th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. It's wonderful to look out and see all of you, although if you were closer at these tables, I could actually see you better. So let's remember that next week. And for those of you watching online, a warm welcome to you as well. Now, before we get started, I just want to say a quick congratulations to our very own Judy Thomas back here for winning her election. Once again, our councilwoman at large, so congratulations, Judy. And now would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I would like to ask Cedric Hill II if he would bring us today's invocation in accordance with his faith tradition. Cedric.
Would you pray with me? Father, we thank you for our time together this afternoon. Thank you for the food that we are receiving, the program that we're about to hear, and every aspect of this meeting that's about to take place. And Lord, we just take a moment to lift up the community in Texas right now that is dealing with the unspeakable actions that happened yesterday. Pray for healing for that community, and I just pray that for solutions to these things that continue to happen more often than they should be. And Lord, help us to know as a Rotary Club, a service organization, the ways in which we can do our parts to help make our communities better to prevent these things from happening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. And don't forget the cans.
At this time, Alston Lyle will bring us today's news.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here is a look at your headlines. The primary elections have concluded. The results of yesterday's primary elections are in. Incumbent Mayor Skip Henderson was reelected for a second term here in Columbus. Meanwhile, at the state level, Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams are set for a rematch for governor in November, and Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock will battle for the Senate seat. There's a school shooting in Texas yesterday. Just a week ago, Cedric's News mentioned the horrific report of the Buffalo mass shooting, and to echo his thoughtful prayer, unfortunately, I'm here conveying a similar story. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed in a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, yesterday becoming the 212th mass shooting of 2022, which is defined as 4 or more people killed at once. While we offer them our most sincere thoughts and prayers, to me that feels like simply not enough. In lighter news, graduations have concluded. Over the last week or so, all of the area's high schools held their graduation ceremonies. While congratulations to the new graduates are certainly due, it's just as important to say a hefty congratulations to the parents and grandparents, and I'm sure there are many in this room, so a big congratulations to all of you for this milestone. The Dow Jones was up 29 points at noon today. Your weather forecast is a lovely thunderstorms with a high of 83 and a low of 67. And to commemorate primaries being over, we have a quick joke for you. How did the poll worker at the voting location get everyone to work together? Not everyone at once. Well, she delegates. You know, like delegates? Yeah. That's the best I could do. Have a good day.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to call on Michael Holbrook to bring us today's visiting Rotarians and guests.
President Lori and fellow Rotarians, we have Rotarians that have brought guests. Ron Mullins has brought with him Judge Ben Land, and he's also brought his law clerk, Stephanie Caldwell. Ben McMinn has brought Deborah Kidder, who's the Dean of the Turner College of Business at CSU. Andy Redmond has brought with him Michael Dennehy, who is the Director of Communications at the National Infantry Museum. Ben Moser has brought with him B.J. Tillman, who is an intern with the United Way. And last but not least, we have Tippy Birch, who's a guest of our speaker today. Please help me welcome all our guests and visitors.
Thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure each week when we welcome and honor a military guest. And so at this time, I would like to ask Past President Michael Silverstein to introduce today's Colonel Ralph Puckett, Jr. Soldier of the Week.
President Laurie and fellow Rotarians, it is an honor today to introduce our special military guest, Staff Sergeant Doug Bishop, who's a 19D Cavalry Scout. He currently serves as the Armor School Commandant Driver here at Fort Benning, and he's originally from a long line of military and a military brat. Cincinnati was where he was born, but he's been many places due to the military. He personally joined the Army in February of 2011, and he attended one station unit training at Fort Knox. He has served in multiple leadership positions. What's very interesting in talking to Staff Sergeant Bishop, his grandfather, who served with the 101st, had 3 deployments in Vietnam. His father served with the 101st. He had 2 deployments, one in Afghanistan and one in Iraq, and this fine soldier has had 2 deployments, also with the 101st, to Afghanistan and Iraq. As a result of what he has done, he has received multiple awards and decorations, just several to include the Army Achievement Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters, the Army Commendation Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters, the Good Conduct Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters. He and his wife, Amy, live here on post. They're the proud parents of a 6-year-old daughter, Brenly, and they have a 9-month-old son, Colton. Staff Sergeant Bishop, we can't thank you enough for everything that you and your family have done for our country as you followed in that tradition. We have several mementos of today's visit that I'd like to provide. First is a Rotary Challenge coin. I know you know what to do with the Challenge coin. We also have a passport to the arts. I know you're going to be leaving sometime in the fall, but there are 2 tickets to any performance at the River Center, the Symphony, admission to the National Infantry Museum by virtue of the exhibits there, Columbus State University Theater, and the Springer. And we talked about Colonel Ralph Puckett, and you are the Colonel Ralph Puckett Jr. Soldier of the Week. This commemorates that in terms of your being with us today. And last but not least, Words for Warriors, which is the book that Colonel Ralph Puckett authored, and there is an inscription in there. This particular book is presented to you to commemorate your visit to the Rotary Club of Columbus, Georgia. Today's date, May 25th, 2022, and it's given to you by fellow Rotarian Malin Faircloth in memory of his brother, Staff Sergeant Johnny W. Faircloth, who was killed in action on September 18th, 1965 in Vietnam in the Battle of An Ninh. He was posthumously awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action. I know you will cherish this book. Again, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate everything that you and your fellow soldiers do for us each and every day.
Staff Sergeant Bishop, I just want to re-welcome you and tell you how glad we are that you're here, and please take back to all the men and women who serve with you at Fort Benning our sincerest gratitude for all that you do. Thank you. I just have a couple of announcements today. First of all, we are holding Career Day, where we will go into, I think it's 8 different schools this summer for the summer program, and talk to them about our different professions. And so we still have some slots available, and the sign-up is in the back, correct, Julie? Sign-up is in the back. So please consider sharing what you do in your profession with these students. Our next in-person happy hour will be June the 2nd. It's going to be at Pure Taqueria up on Veterans Parkway, and that'll be from 5:30 until 7:30. So I hope that you will join your fellow Rotarians for some good food and even better fellowship. So joining me today at the head table is Cedric Hill II, who brought us our invocation, and now it's my pleasure to call on Past President Ron Mullins to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Madam President. Judge Andrew Pinson was appointed to our Georgia Court of Appeals by Governor Brian Kemp in August of last year. Because of a vacancy on the Georgia Supreme Court, Judge Pinson will be elevated to our state Supreme Court in July of this year. His appointment to the Supreme Court affects us here in Columbus because our own Superior Court Judge Ben Land, who is with us today, has been named to the Georgia Court of Appeals to fill the vacancy left by this appointment. And while we hate to lose Ben at the local level, he will be an excellent addition to our Georgia Court of Appeals. Judge Pinson is a native Georgian, and like many good lawyers and judges who shall go unnamed, he attended both the University of Georgia undergraduate and law school. As an undergraduate, he graduated summa cum laude, first honor graduate with a degree in finance. He then went to law school where he was on the law review and graduated first in his class, unlike many good lawyers and judges in our midst today. After law school, he served as a clerk at the United States Supreme Court for the Honorable Justice Clarence Thomas, and you may remember that Justice Thomas spoke to us years ago. After clerking there, he worked with the Jones Day Law Firm in Atlanta as part of the firm's issues and appeals practice. And in 2017, he joined the office of the State Attorney General Chris Carr and was subsequently appointed the Solicitor General for the state of Georgia. He worked on various matters, including the water wars litigation, which also affected us here in Columbus. He now serves on the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism, where he helped start up a new program that awards grants to promote legal professionalism in Georgia. Judge, I would say as an aside, based on what I see in my courtroom from time to time, the focus on professionalism is greatly needed, and we appreciate your work in that area. Judge Pinson lives in the Atlanta area with his wife, Sarah Beth. Please join me in welcoming Judge Pinson to Columbus.
Thank you, Judge Mullins. Thank you to all of you for having me here. It's great to be in Columbus. I am from Georgia, born and raised, and I feel very grateful to be in a position now as a statewide elected official where I get a great excuse to get around and visit so many more places in the state that I love than I otherwise would kind of have the opportunity or time to do. So I'm really glad to be here and glad to meet all of y'all and spend some time here. So I thought I would talk today, knowing that Rotary is a service organization, service over self is sort of your creed, just about my path through and into public service. I've spent some time in private practice, but most of my career I've been a judicial clerk, solicitor general, and now am a judge on the Court of Appeals. And so I just thought I would take some time to talk through my path and give you maybe a little bit of a window into those positions, how they relate, to our constitutional structure and their importance within our system of government. And so I'll start, I guess, just by filling in my background a little bit. Like I said, I was born and raised in Georgia. Born in Lithonia, lived in Lawrenceville for a little bit. Both of my parents, and actually my stepdad too, were all veterinarians. So we had a lot of dogs in the house, but we also moved a lot, a couple times when they had open practices in different places. I mostly grew up in Lincoln County, Georgia, which is a very small county, small town of Lincolnton near Augusta on the South Carolina border. We moved out there after my mom had some health issues. I grew up there, went to high school there, and then spent the next 7 years in Athens. As Judge Mullins said, double dog, undergrad, business degree, and then law school. The most important part, my wife would say, is that, and I would say, is that I met my wife freshman year about 2 weeks in, and that was sort of all she wrote. We got married at the university chapel after the first year of law school, and have been together ever since. So that was the best part of the otherwise fantastic Athens experience for me. And then so my road into public service really started with my clerkships. So I had a clerkship first for Chief Judge David Sentel in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, and then clerked for Justice Thomas. And a clerkship is a really fantastic opportunity for a new attorney, or really for anyone, for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, it's a wonderful foundation in terms of legal experience and training. And then beyond that, it's an opportunity that you get maybe for the first time until a very long time later, to be on that side of the bench and have the opportunity to see how the machinery of justice works, and also to help in a very meaningful way with the judge's job. The job of a clerk is, it's very substantial, and it's not sort of ministerial like the name sounds. You're very much involved in the day-to-day heavy lifting of the work of a judge. And I can say that now as a judge, that judges rely very heavily on their law clerks to analyze every case that comes before them, to help prepare for legal argument and write memos and things that help to do with that. And then also to draft the opinions and all of those decisions that end up as the law that binds all of us. The clerks are heavily involved in drafting and helping with those things. Of course, the judge is making the decisions, but being a law clerk is something that, again, as someone coming right out of law school, query whether we should have students directly out of law school having that huge responsibility, but it's a fantastic opportunity to serve in a way that again, maybe many, many years down the road until you're able to serve in that capacity again. So I very much enjoyed my time as a law clerk. People ask me a lot about, what was it like clerking on the Supreme Court, in particular, clerking for Justice Thomas and doing the work of that court, particularly salient maybe with the recent leak and everything like that. I'm happy to talk about that later, but not in these remarks. But, that experience it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I refer to it on one hand as kind of a crucible of legal training, in addition to all the work that I just talked about that law clerks do for most any judge on some of the most difficult issues of the day, because, of course, the reason that those cases get to the Supreme Court is because judges around the country can't agree on what the answer is. You also deal with the court gets something around 8,000 petitions asking the court to hear their case each year. And the law clerks are kind of the first line of defense, not defense, the first line of sort of figuring out which of those very few cases that they can take and hear as a court. That 8,000 gets whittled down to about 70 cases a year. And it's the law clerk's responsibility. Those cases are divvied up, and the law clerks write a memo to the judge on a range of issues, civil, criminal, habeas, everything under the sun, about whether the court should be interested in taking that case or not. So it really is, in terms of legal training and time and effort, one of the most substantial things that you could take on sort of early in your career. Justice Thomas would talk to his law clerks at the beginning of the year and say, for me, this job is a marathon. I have to be doing this for 30 or 40 years. I can't burn the candle at both ends every single day and night and weekend. But you are only here for a year. So for you, it's more of a sprint. And if you fall over at the end of the term, well, that's fine. You have a month or two to recover and you'll be fine. But that's really the way that law clerks on the Supreme Court, in Justice Thomas's chambers and all the others, handle their job and take it seriously. So it's a lot, but at the same time, it's an awesome responsibility and a chance to work on some of the most difficult legal issues of the day and to learn from some of the most brilliant, sharpest minds, in the legal sphere that you could speak of in our country. So it's a fantastic experience. I'm happy to talk more about it if you have questions, but that really is kind of a formative experience for me, and I know for anyone who has the opportunity to do it. So moving on from judicial clerkships, my wife and I moved back from D.C. to Georgia. It was a pretty easy decision for us. We lived in Northern Virginia, which was very nice. It was also very expensive, and we have family here. And then also I knew coming out of my clerkship that I did want to be a public servant, that at some point I wanted to end up back in public service for my career. And where better to do that than home, than Georgia, where I could do it sort of on behalf of its citizens and the people that I know and love. And so we made the decision to come back. I started at Jones Day, which was a firm that I had worked at a little bit in the summer during law school. Spent a few years there in private practice, sort of, getting the experience of working in private practice, but ultimately gravitated back towards and wanted to end up in public service. And then I got that opportunity in the Solicitor General's office. And so you can be excused for not knowing what the state Solicitor General does, or even that Georgia has one. I didn't actually know either until, until I was at the Supreme Court clerking, and whenever a state was in a case, and they were involved at the merit stage, the person that came up and argued before the court for the state was a Solicitor General. I was like, that would be a pretty cool job. And so I learned that job existed. Actually, in Georgia, we did not have a Solicitor General until 2011 under Attorney General Sam Olens created the office. And it's a relatively new phenomenon across the states. But ultimately what the position is a person who can kind of be viewed as the head or lead for the appeals practice for the entire state. In some states that's civil and criminal, in some states it's civil. In Georgia, it's mostly civil with a little bit of criminal, which is the same sphere as the Attorney General's responsibility. But that's the sort of top line responsibility of the Solicitor General, is to lead and coordinate all of the appeals when the state's involved in litigation across the state. But there's a lot more to the job than that. The states, especially in the last few years, have been very active nationally in terms of multi-state litigation. It doesn't matter who the president is, there's going to be a group of states that's going to sue the federal government, whether it's for federal overreach or underreach or whatever. There's going to be something, and there are a lot of these lawsuits where the states band together and coordinate and file suits when they see overreach or other things in terms of federal law. And then there's also a very strong practice of amicus briefing or friend of the court briefing in the U.S. Supreme Court. States are very active in filing briefs in cases to tell the court the state's perspective on particular issues. And then beyond that, in Georgia, the biggest, sometimes the most time-consuming responsibility was simply being the advisor for the Attorney General, whether appellate or not, just any sort of issues of significance or importance for the state that the Attorney General just wanted kind of a point person or someone to take the lead on. That was many times the Solicitor General who did that. The big example that I like to give is the water wars litigation, which I assume most everybody has heard of water wars at this point. There's actually a lot of water litigation that Georgia is involved in with Florida and Alabama. The biggest one, and the one that I was fortunate enough to work on along with all the other litigation, was this suit filed by Florida against Georgia in the U.S. Supreme Court as an original action, which alleged that Georgia was using water both in metro Atlanta and mostly in South Georgia in the Apalachicola, Chattahoochee, Flint River Basin, that its use of water was unreasonable and that it had caused the collapse of the oyster fisheries in Florida. And so that suit was filed in 2013, and it took 8 years before special masters, before the U.S. Supreme Court, in 2 separate arguments for that litigation to be concluded. And so the Solicitor General was the point person or lead for the state. There were plenty of people involved. Solicitor Generals, and there have been a few of us, can't take nearly all the credit for it. We had outside counsel in the case who did a lot of the heavy lifting. But we were a part of that litigation, and I was really, really fortunate to be the one who helped kind of bring that home, where we ultimately prevailed before the Supreme Court. Was it 2 years ago now? before the Supreme Court who dismissed Florida's case, saying that they couldn't prove and didn't prove that Georgia had caused the harm to the oyster fisheries, and in fact, that Florida had overharvested its oysters in anticipation of effects from a hurricane, and so it was sort of Florida's own fault, and we didn't have to turn off our spigot, which really kind of an existential threat to our water resources in Georgia. And just one example of the kind of litigation that a Solicitor General is involved with in Georgia and in a lot of other states. So I'm very proud of the work that I got to do there. And it's a very interesting and sort of under the radar position of public service that is worth knowing about. And then that brings us to my current position, which is as a judge on the Georgia Court of Appeals. As I think most of you know, if you voted in the primary election over the last few weeks, judges in Georgia are elected. You probably voted for some of them in that primary. Judges are elected, but if there's a vacancy during the term of a judge, if the judge steps down or resigns, then the governor is required by the Constitution to appoint a successor to that vacancy, and then that judge will run for election after a new short term of office that's imposed based on dates set by the Constitution. So that's how I ended up on the Court of Appeals, which is fairly common. Most judges on the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court in the past decade, 2 decades even, have been appointed in this way when judges step down, because they often do not step down at the end of the term. So Justice Colvin, the governor, appointed her to a vacancy when Justice Melton stepped down, and that left a vacancy on the Court of Appeals, which the governor asked me to fill last year after a lengthy nomination, application, interview process. And so I've been on the Court of Appeals over the past year and have been working and doing that job, and then I will soon, a similar thing happened this time, and I was asked by the governor to move to the Supreme Court. So just a little bit about the work of a judge, and I can only speak to the job I'm in now, not the one I'm going to. I will just say that I love this work and I love this job. I think it's, again, a wonderful responsibility to do this work, which ultimately, when you boil it down, is helping the citizens of our state on the civil side to resolve disputes that can't be resolved by legal means, that by means other than the court system. And in doing so, to help interpret and elucidate and apply the laws of our state. Really, it's just a way, doing our small part to uphold the rule of the law in our state, and it's something that I love to do. It's something, as you've sort of heard, my career to this point has been appeals, mostly appeals. It's been appellate practice, the sort of thinking and researching and learning about the law and writing about the law and how it applies to a given case, and to have the opportunity to do that in a way that allows me to also serve the public and help carry out our rule of law is just a very special and important responsibility, and one that I'm thankful to have. So I will be doing that for the next couple of months, and then in July I will move up to the Supreme Court. The differences between the courts, a lot of people ask. The Court of Appeals is the intermediate state appellate court, 15 judges. They sit in panels of 3 judges. They hear most of the appeals in the state. Judge Land is about to learn that there are a lot more cases that he will decide than I will decide as a Supreme Court justice, or at least that he will write. I want to say numbers are down a little bit during COVID because of the slowdown in the trial courts, but could expect in a given year, each judge on the Court of Appeals will write probably somewhere between 70 and 100 opinions. Some of those may not be published, but that's a lot of work. When I say that judges rely on their law clerks to really dig in and help with the research and writing, there's no way that one single judge, maybe Judge Land can, but I could not write all of those all by myself. So they rely heavily on the law clerks and staff attorneys to help with that. The Supreme Court handles, on the other hand, they're the court of last resort, right? So they will take some cases from the Court of Appeals on a discretionary basis. That's called the certiorari system. There will be petitions from Court of Appeals decisions, and the court will decide which of those cases are sufficiently important to take. And then they have a limited, unlike the U.S. Supreme Court, they have a limited docket of direct appeals, appeals that go straight to the Supreme Court. And those cases are constitutional questions, anything that's a question of first impression in terms of interpreting or construing the Constitution, those jump straight to the Georgia Supreme Court. And then also direct appeals from murder cases, and there are a couple of other minor categories. So that will be the Supreme Court docket, so it's a little bit more limited, but you have to get 8 other justices to agree with you when you write an opinion, so that will be interesting. I see that my time is running a little bit short, so why don't I end with this. Again, I am just very, very fortunate and blessed to have the opportunity to serve you as a judge in this state. I take very seriously my responsibility to uphold the rule of law, and I think that it's a great thing that I've found to be able to do public service for the people of my state in this way. So I appreciate being here, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you have about any of that or anything else that you'd like to do. But thank you for your time.
Questions? Britt, back here.
Thank you. It was really interesting for you to explain how the solicitor position acts even within other states. I work in long-term care, and when the current administration came out with the vaccine mandates back in fall, I know several states combined 13 initially to somewhat thwart that effort, or at least make it all-encompassing for all health care instead of long-term care. Was that the process that helped change the vaccination mandate? And if so, how was that topic brought forth to the solicitors? Was it by groups in different states? Thank you.
So first of all, I'll speak more generally about the process rather than about specific issues, just given my role. But it's a great question about sort of how do these national issues become visible and sort of get taken on. In my office, while I was the Solicitor General, and in many other states, a lot of it is just paying attention. Well, the first thing is the Attorney General, right? So the Solicitor General is not an elected position. They all serve, as far as I know, everyone serves at the pleasure of the Attorney General. So whatever a particular state's Attorney General is concerned about or interested in terms of those kinds of national issues that affect the state, those are the things that a Solicitor General is going to be on the lookout for in terms of things that we can do to help advance the particular state's interests. Under AG Carr, I will say the first question that we asked when any of these things came up, and a lot of things would come up. Some things would be the Solicitor General and the AG would find these things. Others, we would hear from other offices about this is either a litigation opportunity or an opportunity to join an amicus brief or something like that. In the Solicitor General's office in Georgia, question number one was always, what does this have to do with Georgia? So, you know, national litigation can be, sexy is not the right word, but higher profile, right? In a way that can be appealing to AGs who are, after all, politicians, right? Who are going to, you know, be mindful of those separate interests. The SD has no skin in that game. So the question is just, is there some kind of Georgia interest here where this is affected? There were plenty of amicus briefs where we were asked to sign on, and we wouldn't because we could say, well, that's an interesting issue in the abstract, but Georgia doesn't have this kind of law or doesn't have this kind of issue, and so we wouldn't join it. And so that was kind of the first thing. Beyond that, you know, the second question I would always ask, and this goes back to my time as a clerk for Justice Thomas again, when he talked to his clerks, brought us over to his house and talked to him about what the job would entail and what he wanted from us, number one with a bullet was, do not worry about my, what you think my leanings are or the politics of the nation or the court or anything like that. Your job is to find the right answer, and that's what we're going to do. And sometimes you would disagree on what the right answer is, right? And so it wasn't always you did what the clerk thought what the right answer was, but the clerk's job was to find the right answer. And so my role, both as Solicitor General and really as judge, and what I tell my law clerks too, was what's the right answer in this case, right? It may be appealing, if you look at it with a political lens, for somebody to take these particular positions, but if we can't argue or say on the law that this is a reasonable position, then that's not something we're going to do. So Georgia interest, is it the right answer? And then from there, it's just sort of a balancing question of how strong is the interest? Is this something that we step into? And then the AGs across the country will have to make their own decisions on other things that are well above the SG's pay grade. So I hope that's helpful.
On the Court of Appeals, do the three-judge panels hear arguments, or is it entirely review?
Yes, I wish we would hear more arguments. So I think that you can ask for argument in any case on a three-judge panel. I'm surprised that more litigants don't ask for argument in more cases. But for a judge on the Court of Appeals, it's really the only opportunity you may get to see the litigants who are before you in this particular case. It's very, very different from a case at trial where the litigants are going to be before you in a hearing, if not the trial itself. And so I think it's really nice to be able to have that, and I think that often argument can be helpful to clarify issues or make finer points that don't show up in the briefs. So the short answer to your question is yes. The longer answer is I am hopeful that we can see more of those in the coming days. I think that judges have different philosophies on when to grant argument and when not to. Mine tends to be if somebody makes an effort, and you have to file a request. In some courts, you just have a blurb in your brief, but in our court, you have to file a separate request for argument. My view is that as long as somebody presents something that's not just pro forma or kind of a boilerplate request, and they give me a real reason, and their briefs are reasonably good, then maybe it would be helpful, and so I'm going to grant it. Other judges, I think, would have the view that argument typically isn't going to change their mind about a particular case, and that may well be true. I mean, the other thing about appellate courts is that most of the action happens in briefing. It's just argument based on the writings. All of the best arguments ideally would be in those writings, and so judges are going to be able to figure out what the answer is without the argument. But I still think it's helpful, and I'd like to see it more.
As a former Supreme Court clerk, I'm just curious as to your reaction to the leak of the draft of the Roe v. Wade decision, and also are you surprised that the leaker has not been identified yet?
Let's see. So I should be careful about this. I will say, I think I can share, and I think it's pretty universal among past clerks, that it was shocking to see that there was a leak. I think it's very much public that when clerks come to the court, they sign a confidentiality agreement. Their justices and the court make very, very clear how important that is to the institution, to be able to deliberate as a body freely and with the trust that you need to be able to work through, again, some of the most difficult issues before our nation today. A leak, this is not the first time that there's been a leak from the court, but it is an order of magnitude that I think is different from any other, because it's not just a leak about, after the fact, something that happened within the process or whose votes were changed or things like that. It was sort of at the heart of the deliberative process is this back and forth of opinion drafts, which many times there will be a dozen or more drafts that go around to get votes and multiple opinions. So that's very much a part of the process and an ongoing part of the process. We have no idea whether this particular draft will be imported into the final opinion. We have no idea what that will look like. But what it's done, I think, is severely damage the trust that likely the justices and the clerks have with each other to be able to deliberate in good faith. I think that's damaging to the court as an institution. I don't think anyone who's associated with the court would be able to disagree with that. And so I was very disappointed and shocked to see it. I don't know that I really have a view on whether they will find the leaker or not. It's just hard to know without having any insight into that process. Nothing like this has happened before, so I don't think that there's much public about what that process looks like or how likely it is to succeed.
Judge, glad to have someone here who was deeply involved in the water issue. That lawsuit was seeming to me was a narrow lawsuit between Georgia and the issues in Florida. Before that, there were 7 lawsuits that covered many other issues. I'm not sure how the court addresses something when they get a lawsuit like that that's been through a long process. Can you comment on that?
On the prior lawsuits, or?
Well, the prior lawsuits are whether or not in the lawsuit that the Supreme Court handled, whether they looked at a broader spectrum of water issues. We have stream flow here at Columbus that we feel like we're neglected on, and we have navigation that has been shut down for a number of years that are all kind of in the federal spectrum.
Yes, okay, so I see what you're asking now. So the Supreme Court in that original action was focused, I think, solely on the Florida-Georgia question. The way an original action works in the Supreme Court is you have a state, it's the rare action that's basically a trial in the U.S. Supreme Court. And so Florida brings its complaint in the U.S. Supreme Court that says, these are our grievances. It's essentially a plea for equitable apportionment of the basin. And so the 4 corners of that complaint and that issue was all that the court really had the authority or jurisdiction to look at, and that's what it did. So all these other water issues, which I agree are certainly still out there and very important, those are still being, the ones I know about, at least that the state's involved in, several of those are still being litigated. And I was a part of the teams that were sort of helping and managing with those. But those are still working through the courts. And those are not, I'm not aware of another original action in the U.S. Supreme Court. So I think those are all litigation in federal courts that are at various stages, administrative law cases that have to do with a variety of different issues. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with these particular stream flow issues in Columbus, but the short answer is no. The court would not have been able to look at anything past this Florida-Georgia issue. Thank you.
Judge Pinson, thank you again for making the trip and sharing about really your journey and educating us on the legal system. And we're excited for you in your next chapter. So would you please come back maybe, a couple years, Ron?
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, you all heard that. He said yes. Wonderful. So please remember that there will be a replay of today's program on our Facebook page as well as YouTube. And I would like to re-welcome all of our visitors. Thank you for being here, particularly Staff Sergeant Bishop. There you are. Thank you for being here. And you won't want to miss next week's program. It'll be scary good. It'll be David Flowers talking about venomous snakes. 2 more things before you go. Please, if you're a new member and you haven't done a photo, please see Jim in the back and have your photo done for the new directory that'll come out early in the summer or late summer. And then also, please remember to sign up for Career Day. That'll be coming up soon. And so until we meet again next week, let's continue to make a difference. Thank you, Dad. That was awesome. Good to have a double dog, isn't it?
Very nice, yes.
Always.